Hey there, it's Kat and this is Brews and Reviews. In today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys part 1 of my March 2022 wrap-up. Why part 1, you ask? Well, I read 17 books in March, and frankly, I know that myself, as I am feeling at this very point in time, I am not up for editing a video that involves me rambling on about 17 books, so I've decided to split these two videos, and if you're bothered about it, it's tough toenails really, because I've already done it, so you live with the consequences of my decisions. But yeah, I was not feeling up to editing a really long video, so I decided to make these more bite-sized so that they are more manageable for me and more manageable in terms of actually getting them to you guys so you guys can actually see the videos, rather than me just procrastinating for ages, which is, you know, not fun for anyone. So we're going to get straight into this. These are the books that I read in, we'll say the first half of the month, but I mean, who knows how long it actually was. These are just like 9 of the books that I read in March. The first book that I picked up was World's Edge by Ryan Kirk. This is the sequel to Nightblade and the second book in the trilogy. I think it's a trilogy. I should probably look that up one of these days, but it's not today that I'm doing that. So it's the second book, the sequel to Nightblade. So without spoiling too much that happened in the first book, we do follow some Nightblades in this book, and they are essentially like assassins with some abilities that go beyond like normal human abilities. And it's really interesting the direction that this book takes, because it splits off into multiple perspectives, which the first book did have also, but everyone sort of came together at the end, and now they've separated and gone in different directions following different plot threads, and I thought it was really interesting, particularly because one of the characters goes off and sort of does a training montage, which is not always my favourite thing, but I feel like the balance of having that character go off and meet a bunch of people and sort of learn how to do specific things with their abilities, oh my god, it's so hard not to spoil anything, and the other character going off on a quest, which honestly I found the more interesting storyline, it balanced it out really well. So I did really enjoy this. I'm really excited to read the next book in the series because it's all about to go down. There's gonna be a very big battle in the next book, and it's gonna be very, very interesting with the particular powers that these characters have. So yeah, I gave it 4 out of 5 stars, and I am eager to pick up the next one. The next book that I picked up was Cambridge Blue by Alison Bruce. This is a detective crime thriller. Hi, Cooper, hi! He did not want to be ensnared, but he has been ensnared because he dared to walk past. So, not happy with this. Go on, I love you. Go on. It's like, I was just walking past, leave me alone, woman! I hope you guys aren't opposed to me leaving in these little bits about the cat interrupting me. I just love him and I want him to be in all the videos, but also he's kind of antisocial, so that's all you get. So the next book that I picked up was Cambridge Blue by Alison Bruce. This is a crime thriller set in Cambridge in the UK, where I lived near. I lived and worked near Cambridge at one point in my life, so I'm kind of familiar with a lot of the places that were named. Like, it kept like dropping different places. I was like, I've been there and I know where this is. I don't know why, that's just kind of exciting when you read a book. Does anyone else get that, or is it just me? I don't know. This was an okay crime thriller. The problem I had with this book is that the main character was very clever, obviously a very intelligent person, but was really bad at office politics. Like, there was no way that this person would be in the police. They would have just been absolutely kicked out of the police because they just did not know how to follow rules and stuff. He'd just do stuff and he'd just not tell his boss. He'd even like walk away midway through a conversation with his boss where his boss was telling him that he was like on his last strike and he really needed to start following the rules. And he was like, just 1 second, I just need to go over. And he wouldn't tell him what he was doing, and like, how did the boss not fire him? How I don't know. It just really frustrated me, so I gave it 3 out of 5 stars because the overall story was pretty good and, you know, it was alright crime thriller, but I just don't believe that this guy would be in the police. He just couldn't be. He would have been sacked before he even made it through like training period. It was just no. The next book that I picked up was 24 Hours in Ancient Rome, and this is kind of a non-fiction book that is sort of framed in a fictional setting with some real people in it. It's kind of hard to explain. So essentially the book goes through 24 hours of a day, and it goes like hour by hour, and it follows different people who would have been alive in ancient Rome and sort of what they'd be doing, and it does reference real people and things that they did, but it kind of frames it in a way that it's like, oh, you're following this person as they go down the street and they could do this thing, or like they've been robbed or punched a guy. I just think the way that it's done really suited the way that I like to absorb non-fiction, because it seems like with non-fiction, when I'm learning history things, I'm very like story driven, and I want to sort of follow a character as they do the thing, and then I can absorb the information, whereas if it's just very dry, then it just goes right over my head. I read like a medieval Europe one earlier on in the year, and I was just like, nothing's gone in, it's all a waste of time. So this one I actually felt like I absorbed things, and I also found it particularly interesting because I'm going to like a 6-course meal thing that's like ancient Roman meals, which seems like it could be really interesting, and I was like, this will get me in the mood, and it kind of has. So, you know, that's fun. I would like to hear a round of applause for me having read this next book, because it may have been on about 20 different TBRs at this point, but it's not going to be on another one because I've read it now. So, Stormglass by Maria V. Snyder. I have finally read this book and didn't enjoy it. It was not worth the wait, guys. I'm very disappointed. I ended up giving this one 2 out of 5 stars, and part of me feels like I was maybe being a little bit generous there with how I actually felt about the story, but I'll get into it. So this is the start of a companion continuation series from the Poison Study trilogy, and this is following a different character who briefly appeared in Poison Study. And I won't mention who because it does give things away. There are some returning characters, but they're not featured anywhere near as heavily as I would like, because the main character of this book is kind of insufferable. I mean, all of the characters that are new characters are just the worst. I just really don't like any of them. They have no personality aside from moany whinge bag. I feel like there was far too much focus on boy troubles and not enough focus on magical powers. I don't know, maybe this is the thing that I am missing in my life. I'm like, magical powers, boy troubles, the scales. I think I know which one's gonna win, at least for me. I don't know, teenage boys? No thank you, no thank you. Magical powers. Anyway, I will say the reason I actually gave it 2 stars is that it is a very easy read. I do find Maria V. Snyder's writing to be very easy to get through, and there are aspects of the story, like this promise, that I liked, but God, the characters are the worst. I'm going to read the rest of the series because it is on my 30 books to read before 30 TBR, and I own them, so I'm like, I'm going to read them. But also, I'm going to kind of hate read them because the characters, I want them all to die, and that should not be how I am feeling about these characters. I should be wanting them to live, succeed, romance each other, you know, tackle their magical powers and all of the things that are going on, but I just don't. So, 2 out of 5 stars. Next up, I reread The Fellowship of the Ring. So this is part 1, this is part 2. I mean, together they make one. And I really enjoyed it. I actually had forgotten how much I enjoyed reading The Lord of the Rings and just being super involved in Lord of the Rings. I just love it so much. It just made me really happy and nostalgic to when I definitely had a massive special interest in Lord of the Rings as an 11-year-old. One of the things I had definitely forgotten about this book is that there are so many songs. So many songs that I also was just a bit like, It seems like all of the Hobbit songs in the first book particularly I didn't really enjoy. In the second half, when it moved into more like elfish songs, I enjoyed a little bit more. I just feel like they were more smooth rather than just peppy. I don't know, there's something about the Hobbit songs that I didn't like, and I think that's partly to do with the fact that I don't really gel with poetry, and, you know, it's kind of a similar thing. Also, Tom Bombadil, so annoying. I'm not mad that he was left out of the films. He's really just, oh, so yelly. I'm Tom Bombadil. Whoa, ho, Tom Bombadil. Oh, a lot. He's a lot. So I was glad when his section was over and I did not have to hear of him again. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I loved it. Apart from Tom Bombadil. Still hate you. The next book that I picked up was The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. This is an enemies to lovers sort of work rivals romance, and it was very different than I expected it to be. I feel like one of the last people on earth to have read this book, but you know, we all get there when we get there. And I did really like how they played different games throughout the day. The thing that I found a little bit odd about this book is that I couldn't always tell if it was ever going to get to a point where they actually liked each other, because the main character would just go from like being like, oh, well, maybe we could do, oh, he hates me again, and I hate him again. And it was just a little bit too much for me. I don't know if it's just because I have very sort of black and white feelings about people that I found it quite difficult to go like yo-yoing back and forth. But I did end up enjoying it, and I feel like everything from the wedding onwards I really liked. I really very much enjoyed that. I don't know, it's weird because I feel like it's almost like I don't like enemies to lovers, but I definitely do like enemies to lovers. I just didn't like the yo-yo part of this because it just felt a bit weird to me how back and forth it went. I ended up giving this one 4 out of 5 stars, but I do feel like the end really saved it for me. If the end hadn't been as good as it was, then I might have been a little bit less nice to it. The next book that I read was Take a Hint, Danny Brown by Talia Hibbert, and oh my god, you guys were not wrong about this book. This was so good. I cannot describe how this book was. It was just so good. If you don't know, this is the second book in the Brown Sisters trilogy, but you could pretty much read them in any order that you wanted to because each book in the series follows a different sister. In this book you follow Danica and Sophia as they work together in a university, and one day there's like a emergency drill that goes a bit wrong. He ends up having to sort of rescue her, and it gets captured on social media and it becomes sort of the talk of the internet for a little while. And they decide they're going to sort of fake a relationship because it is, you know, doing great things for Zaf's business. And you know, I just loved it. The way that the two interacted with each other and sort of worked through what each of them had going on was just so perfect. And it's one of those books that I immediately want to read again. And I know I will, because I just love them. Both of the characters, I want both of them, and I just kiss. I love them. I'm sure it will surprise none of you that I give this one 5 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was actually just a very short story, and that was The Demon in the Wood by Leigh Bardugo. This is just a short story about the Darkling and his backstory, and I feel like it provided some really nice context towards his motivations and why he does some of the things he does. It was also kind of nice to see him as a child and sort of see what drew him into the life that he eventually leads in Shadow and Bone and onwards. So I'm glad that I've read it, and now I can finally pick up Rule of Wolves, which I probably won't for a while because the only thing that's really stopping me is my own fear and procrastination. So it'll be a while. And the last book I want to talk to you guys in this part of the wrap up is An Enchantment of Ravens by Margaret Rogerson. So this is a very whimsical book about the Fae. We follow a painter who is a master of her craft who ends up painting the Autumn Prince one day. But she accidentally paints mortal sorrow into the Autumn Prince's eyes, and people aren't very happy about it. And the story goes from there. I don't want to spoil anything, it's a very short book obviously, and that is sort of the catalyst for the story's beginning. But I did really enjoy the world that this was set in, like a sort of midpoint between the complete Fae lands and the human world where there is no Fae. So it was quite a nice sort of place where random things happened. I liked a lot of the little touches, like the fact that her sisters used to be goats, and some Fae got drunk one day and decided they should be little girls. Because if you lived in a world where Fae were kind of mischievous and, you know, just dicks, they would do that. They'd be like, goat girls, yeah. So I really liked that, and I also really liked the Barrow Lords. I feel like they were quite creepy, and I would have liked the more elements that were more creepy. The Fae in this book were definitely very other, and I wouldn't say this is the sort of typical Fae book that I read, but I still did really enjoy it, and I liked the romance. I just feel like it was a little bit short for my liking. As you can see, it is very short, and I feel like the resolution was a little bit lackluster and a little bit bittersweet because I don't think we were given all of the answers that I actually wanted. I could have done with about 50 to 100 pages more to actually have some resolution for some of the questions I had, because I was asking so many questions at the end. I read this as a buddy read with Kayla from Crack Into a Good Book, and I was just asking her all these questions. I was like, what happens to this character? Does this happen? Does this mean that this happens? Does this? I had so many questions, and I would have liked some of them to have been answered at least, but alas, they were not. So I did end up giving it 4 out of 5 stars because I enjoyed it, and I am eager to read more from Margaret Rogerson because I liked her writing, but I just feel like I needed more. So those are all the books that I'm going to talk to you guys about today. If you guys want to know more about the other 8 books that I read, then please come back in a couple of days when I will hopefully have gotten off of my ass and edited that video. Can't promise anything, but here's hoping. So if you made it this far into the video, then please leave me some sort of bird emoji for the ravens in an Enchantment of Ravens. And if you like this video, please leave a like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!